From working as a mental performance coach and consultant, the most common question that I get asked is, how do I stay motivated? Now, unfortunately, that's the wrong question that people are asking, because motivation is not the key factor that determines long-term success and high performance. So instead, today's video is going to talk about the alternative to motivation that will guarantee long-term success and high performance within your chosen performance domain. So irrespective of who you are, motivation, it comes and goes. It's as simple as that. Depending on what you've eaten, how well you've slept, how hard you've been working, all these things lead to various different surges in potency of this feeling of being motivated. And there are times where you get all of these things right and in balance and you still have very little motivation to do whatever you need to do. Now, motivation is, of course, important to start something. It's the ignition point. But after lighting a fire, you wouldn't necessarily strike a new match every single day. Instead, you need to focus on something else to keep the embers burning, week after week, month after month, year after year, so that you can reach your long-term goals and objectives. And that something is commitment. So let's break this down for a second. Commitment is those times in which your friend offers you to stay for one more drink, but you have to politely decline because you know you've got to wake up early and work on that project. And commitment is also those times in which you begrudgingly go ahead and help your dad build that IKEA furniture set that is near on impossible to build because he picked you up from uni the week before. So when you look at these situations, commitment is quite simply the act of doing whatever you need to do irrespective of how you feel. So let's look at this in the context of high performance. Do you think 5-time Olympic gold medalist Sir Steve Redgrave would spend up to 5 hours a day on a rowing machine for over 20 years because he had unlimited pools of motivation? No. He made a commitment to the vision of having those gold medals placed around his neck. So when you break it down, motivation is the same as turning the keys in the ignition of your car. It gets you fired up, but it doesn't necessarily take you anywhere. And that's where commitment comes in. That's the steady, progressive pressure on the pedal to keep you going, keep you moving forward in the right direction, irrespective of how you feel day after day. Now, I myself used to believe that motivation was everything, that if I was to achieve all of my goals and dreams, I needed to sustain immaculate levels of motivation day in, day out. And one of the things that I would do when I was getting into a bit of a rut is probably like many of you, is watch some of these motivational videos on YouTube. But after watching these, you realize that you're only pumped up for about 2 minutes and then you flatline again in terms of your motivation and you can't be bothered to actually crack on with what you need to do. And if success was all about motivation, after watching these videos, all of us would become millionaires, straight-A students and world record holders, but we don't. And the reason for this is because so few of us have taken the time to learn about commitment and how to foster commitment so that we can stay the course with our long-term dreams, passions, and goals. And look, remaining committed is itself something incredibly multifaceted and requires you to individually work out ways in which you can remain as committed as possible. But I want to share one key thing that I think is incredibly useful to foster that commitment. And it's something that I've personally used and had a lot of success with, and so too have many other performers that I've worked with in various different fields. And that very simply is finding an accountability partner. And an accountability partner is quite simply someone who holds another person accountable to a commitment that they have made. So for example, if you set the classic New Year's resolution of I'm going to go running every day at 7 AM, chances are as soon as there's a little bit of bad weather or you've had a bad night's sleep, you're just going to hit the snooze button and not bother. But if you made a commitment to a friend by saying, let's both meet at 7 AM in the local park, chances are, irrespective of the weather or how badly you've slept, you're going to turn up. And the reason for that is because, you ultimately don't want to be a friend. It's far easier to let yourself down than it is another person. And research has actually shown that by having an accountability partner, we can actually increase the likelihood of achieving our goals by up to 95%. And if you're thinking, well, I'm too self-reliant to have an accountability partner, then I really encourage you to read the book $1 Trillion Coach by Eric Schmidt. It documents the life of Bill Campbell, an ex-college football coach turned executive and Silicon Valley CEO. And after retiring from his own business ventures, Bill then became one of the most highly sought after executive coaches in the whole of Silicon Valley. And he ended up coaching pretty much every big name player in Silicon Valley that you could think of. So that included Sergey Brin and Larry Page at Google, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, and even Steve Jobs at Apple. And above all else, Bill held each of these big name players accountable to the overarching missions of their company and made them commit to long-term goals irrespective of the unrelenting times in which they had zero motivation and were crippled by burnout and fatigue. And so if having an accountability partner is good enough for these guys, then what's your excuse? So to sum up, motivation is overrated. Without question, it's vital to get something up and running and to ignite a process towards a long-term goal or project. But we can't rely on it in the long run because it fluctuates day to day. Irrespective of who we are and what we do, there are just going to be some days where we feel like conquering the world and others where we can't be bothered whatsoever. That's life. And despite how many all fart no poo motivational videos you watch, you're not going to be able to fire yourself up day after day to work on your long-term projects and goals. Instead, I really urge you to start thinking more deeply about commitment, because commitment is about doing the work irrespective of how we feel, and particularly during those times where we really don't want to do it. And one of the best ways of fostering that commitment is by having an accountability partner, because an accountability partner almost automatically leads to that commitment, and then that subsequently leads to the pathway of success. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've got a good understanding of how important commitment is to achieve your long-term goals and the role that accountability partners can play in that. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and do also subscribe if you're interested in future videos that will help you level up your mental performance, and I will see you in the next video.